Our agenda today is going to be looking at ecosystems. I'm going to explain what the term ecosystem means and how it's used. We'll talk about Apple's, talk about Google's, and we'll talk about Microsoft's. Those are the three big technology companies, although there are others like Facebook and Amazon, but these three are in almost every aspect of technology today that's possible to be in. And we'll talk about their ecosystems and also a little bit about how they try and bring you into their ecosystem in order to build their profit for their shareholders and their corporate organization, because they are corporations. They're designed to make a profit. And we'll talk about a few pros and cons of each one. Okay. All right. So the term ecosystem means a collection of connected technologies. So you can have an ecosystem that is one vendor's products, or you can have an ecosystem that is connected technologies from different. Most of us have what's called a mixed ecosystem. We might use an email like Gmail. We might use a computer like a Mac or a Windows computer. We might use a phone from Samsung with Android, or Apple with iOS, iPhone technology. And those, we mix these things. We've got a internet service provider, and we might use web pages, services. So we use a mix of different connected technologies, but they all connect together in some way. We connect software apps and devices and services. And the companies that we're going to talk about today, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, in no particular order, but they all provide software applications to do things. They all make devices that you can do those things on, and they all provide services that are based in the cloud that you can use to accomplish things as well. So a connected set of technologies is going to connect one or more software applications. Some software apps are connected to each other. If you think of something like Gmail and Google Docs, they're very well connected together. If you think of Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, they're connected together very well. If you think of Apple's notes and reminders and calendar and their Mac and devices, they're connected together. So companies connect software applications, they connect computers to their software applications, and they connect smartphones to these applications and the computers, and they might connect a tablet in there as well. And they don't all have to be the same company. These are just different connected technologies. There might be a smartwatch involved in this. There might be a cloud involved in this as well, so that you can have a lot of different connected technologies from multiple vendors that are different, but they might connect to each other, because you can use a Gmail application, for example, on your iPhone, or you can use Google Maps on your iPhone, or you can use Apple Music on an Android device. So these are ways you can connect different technologies together. But obviously, what has to happen is that they want to make it work with similar technologies. And then a big growth area for all of these companies is what are called services. They're all providing services, mostly on a subscription basis, that have a monthly or an annual recurring bill that they provide. Some services are free, like a 5 gigabyte, amount of cloud storage you get from somebody might be free, but then they charge you when you use more. Or they might have a free streaming service, so they might have a free email, but some of these services end up costing money over time if you want to take more and more advantage of them. So one of the points is that everything works best if it's in the same organization's ecosystem, meaning if it's all Apple, or if it's all Google, or if it's all Microsoft. They're really designed because they have control over everything. They don't have control over what somebody else makes. but they can make connections to it. They can allow you to use it, but it works the best when it's all in the same ecosystem. So again, an ecosystem is a collection of connected technologies, and Apple and Microsoft and Google all have their own ecosystems. They design them in particular ways to maximize their strengths in technology and their profitability as an organization. They have hardware, they have software apps, and they have services that they provide. And they all provide a little bit different mix of these things in a different way so that each one has a little bit of a different focus depending on which company's ecosystem you're looking at. These are technology companies, so they have a goal to produce profits for their shareholders. They have a goal for employee satisfaction, to attract and retain the best skilled people in order to produce and support and provide growth as a company. And they also want to make sure their customer experience is as good as possible as well, so that they get people coming back to them for repeat business, subscriptions, and adding technology from the ecosystem rather than looking outside of the ecosystem, because all of these technology companies would like you to stay with them as much as possible for any services that and products and applications that you might be looking at using. So let's take a look at how they work. Now let's take a look at Apple first. They've got an iPhone, they've got a Mac, they've got an Apple Watch, they've got an iPad, they have some other hardware, they have an Apple TV, they have Vision Pro, they're looking at coming out with other hardware. We'll see different hardware. They have applications, but most of their apps only run on an Apple device, so that when you're looking at an application that is going to be available for a Mac, it may not be available for Windows. It may not be available for Android. It may not be available in another ecosystem, but they do have something called iCloud in the web, and they provide that as a service, but they also provide web-based applications so that even if you don't have an Apple product, you can get to their iCloud applications over iCloud.com on the web. Then they provide things like an email address, they provide Apple TV, they have Siri, they have a music and movie streaming content that they develop, they provide maps, they provide a lot of other things that they include with their ecosystem. And so ideally, if you wanted to just use Apple technology, you could buy just Apple products and probably live, and work within the Apple ecosystem. The advantage that Apple provides is that they do provide technical support for all of their products, and their technical support is rated really, really well. Okay. Now, the Apple ecosystem has an entry door. Actually, all of them have kind of an entry door, and their entry door for the Apple ecosystem is the iPhone. In general, the first product that people have bought from Apple or buy from Apple is an iPhone. Once they get an iPhone, they start to realize that if they get other Apple products, they're going to be able to work together better. They use similar apps, they use similar user interface designs, screen designs, menus, options. They have similar support services, they have similar capabilities. And so Apple tends to have brought people into the Apple ecosystem through the iPhone. And it makes sense. I mean, most people that had a computer had a Windows computer. It's still the most dominant computer system out there. Most people that use other services out there are using services from different locations and places and other resources. And so they may have something that they're doing. But Apple wants to bring you in through the iPhone. And once they bring you in through the iPhone and get you using an iPhone, then they are increasingly going to encourage you to use other technology in their ecosystem, because guess what? It's easier to connect an iPhone to a Mac than it is to connect an iPhone to a Windows PC, and you can do more things. There are more applications that work on both iPhone and Mac with Apple and other tools like that. So that's Apple's entry door, and it's their most significant product from a earnings standpoint. They make more money on the iPhone than any other product in their portfolio as a corporation. And it's really, really important for them to continue to get people buying and refreshing iPhones and hopefully get people to switch from other brands of phones, mostly Android, to an iPhone product as well. And that's their business plan. That's how they work. And once they get you into the ecosystem, they encourage you to use more products within their ecosystem. Once you buy an iPhone, you're going to get acquainted with Apple support. And if you compare Apple support on a desktop or a laptop computer compared to what you might get on a Windows or a Chromebook, you might find, maybe my next computer ought to be a Mac. And that's what they're hoping you will do and make decisions on. Okay, Microsoft. Microsoft is predominantly a software company, but they do make devices. They don't have a smartphone. They don't make any smartphones. They at one time bought a company called Nokia, paid $8 billion or a little bit more than that for it, and never really got Windows smartphones adopted in the marketplace. Microsoft is known for software applications, Windows operating system. They make a lot of systems that are used in enterprises like companies, businesses, governments, educational institutions that run the back end systems. They run a huge amount of the commercial email systems that are used. They run web servers. They run databases for companies as well. And so they have a big business in that side of it. But they make Windows that runs on their Windows desktops and laptops and tools. Their apps, they're primarily known for Office applications, Microsoft 365, and their apps will run on Apple and Android as in addition to Microsoft products. They don't run on Chromebook systems. So that's one of the things that kind of differentiates Microsoft applications. They won't run on Chromebook, but they do have a web-based solution for their Office products. But they make a lot of other products. They make small business, management systems. They make enterprise databases. They run a huge cloud service that they sell to other companies. They provide us with OneDrive, but they also have commercial versions of that online storage capability as well. And they do make another piece of hardware that you may or may not be very familiar with. They make something called the Xbox. They are really, really big in the gaming market. The gaming market is considered Xbox and Sony PlayStation are the two big gaming consoles, but Windows is also a very, very big gaming platform for people that want to build custom PCs for playing online games. And so Windows is used a lot as a gaming platform by a lot of people. They provide tools like Outlook for email. They've got a search engine. They have AI with Bing and Copilot and other tools. They have a movie service. They aren't too big in the movie production business, but they actually own a lot of intellectual property because of their games. They have some of their own games that they have licensed, and they license them into movies. But they do provide a movie streaming platform, and you can actually purchase movies through the Microsoft Windows Store on a Windows device. And so it's possible to purchase those types of things. So Microsoft has an ecosystem that's built a little bit more around software, and their entry door is Windows desktops and Office applications. That's how they want you to enter Microsoft and start using it. They'd like you to use Bing in Office or an Edge as a browser, so as part of the Windows desktop. And they're making a big effort to come out with Windows computers with Copilot built into the device itself. They've introduced some Copilot based PCs, and these PCs have the ability to run AI on the hardware itself locally without using the cloud. And they're introducing more and more capabilities. One of the things that happens every summer is in May, June, July, is that Microsoft, Apple, Google, usually Facebook, a few others, Amazon, they have what are called developer conferences, and they start to introduce the technologies they're going to be pushing out over the next 3 to 4 months and releasing for commercial release in the October to December timeframe. And they've announced that they're introducing a lot of Copilot AI-based capabilities that will run locally on Windows PCs that have a AI Copilot based chip built into them. And so there's a lot of anticipation for what those tools are going to be doing. And they also have a tremendously robust set of Office suites. A lot of people that, for example, that use Microsoft 365 apps like Word or Excel or PowerPoint tend to gravitate towards OneDrive for their cloud storage because it's tightly integrated with that Office application. And Office will do a few things on Windows that it still won't do on a Mac, but they also make a web version of that. So Microsoft's goal is to get you into their software tools and get you using that more, and through Windows, get you using their Edge browser and their Bing search engine and their AI tools with like Copilot that are built into that. So that's Microsoft's approach. And Microsoft makes a lot of their money through software products. They do make hardware. They do make the Xbox console. They make accessories like keyboards and mice. They have their own Surface brand of computers that they make, but predominantly Microsoft licenses software that are sold by other companies like HP, Lenovo, Acer, etc. Lenovo, they just have a lot of licensing. So that's Microsoft's ecosystem. Google has another ecosystem, and they have a web-based ecosystem, but they do make some technology. They make Android, the mobile operating system that's used on Samsung and LG and Motorola, and it's virtually used on everybody else that makes a smartphone except Apple. And Google owns the Android operating system and licenses it, just like Microsoft licenses Windows to run on other products. Google has a Chromebook operating system, and they might license the Chromebook operating system for people that want to use it. And Google has made a tremendously large inroad in the K through 12 market worldwide with Google applications that support student learning processes and teachers and student relationships and interactions. And they make the Chromebook the primary operating system and desktops, the laptop system that works with it, but they don't make the physical hardware. They do have a phone of their own that they sell. They do have other services as well. They have a lot of different services that they run. They have apps that like run Office apps. They'll run on Android, they'll run on Apple, they'll run on Microsoft Windows, so you can use their apps everywhere. They have a Google Drive storage capability. They have services like Gmail that's free. They have a search course, obviously, with Google Search. They have the Chrome browser. They have YouTube. They provide maps. So they provide a lot of services that are out there as well. And they also acquired a company called Fitbit and are using that as a fitness device and integrating it into their Google ecosystem as well. They also announced at their latest developer conference that they have a marketing plan with Warby Parker, I think that's who it is, for Google Glasses. And so they're getting into the device business for wearables with that. They tried it once before. I think they learned what was good, what wasn't good about it, and they're starting to come out with things. And they're very big in AI with Gemini and providing Gemini services through all of these tools that are available as well. So Google's got a great ecosystem, but their business is predominantly still based on advertising. And so they want to get you using Gmail because Gmail works best when you're using a web browser on a desktop. They have a Gmail application, and they also want you to be using the Chrome web browser because then they can push advertising in front of you when you're continuing to use Google search. So Google's entry doors to get you using their free tools. That's why they provide a lot of free services for us that are usable. Things like YouTube doesn't cost anything, but it's advertising sport. You can purchase a ad-free version of YouTube, but you don't have to. You can get an ad-supported version of YouTube. Their search engine is ad supported. Their Gmail is ad supported so that they have a lot of information and resources. And their goal is to connect people as much to Google's ecosystem through their free services as possible. But they also have a commercial division that does sell their applications as application suites for document creation, for spreadsheet, for slide presentations, for databases and other mail infrastructure, mail and tools like that. So they have a big data structure that they sell resources to that are not only consumer based but are commercially based as well. And so those are three entry points for Apple, Microsoft, and Google. They all have their own applications. They all have a calendar app, a mail app, a messaging app, a camera, photos, maps, notes, contacts, web browsers. So they all have their own basic essential application functions that exist that are available to you. Although Microsoft just announced the end of Skype, so they might not be doing that. But Microsoft has a very popular corporate messaging function that's used within corporations and businesses that is commonly part of their Microsoft Teams. They have a web conferencing feature. Google has a web conferencing feature. Apple has a web conferencing feature. So you find a lot of them have apps as they become popular, or there's a demand for them, and they start to come out with their own app, or they enhance their own app that they might not have had for a while and work on it and develop it. The companies have Mail, Google, Gmail, Apple Mail, Microsoft Outlook. As I mentioned, Microsoft announced that they're ending Skype, but Apple has iMessage, Google has their chat. There's contacts apps, there's calendar apps, there's photo apps. They all have photo management systems that manage your photos and can be searched in the cloud. They all have their own browsers. They all have their own cloud drives. So they all have the basics. You might have a little specialized need that makes you consider using one versus another because you like a particular functionality with one versus another. But they're all really providing a lot of the essential tools for a lot of technology usage throughout the consumer and to some extent commercial base as well. And they all have their own services. They all have their own email services, messaging, maps, clouds, streaming services. With the exception, Microsoft does stream, but they don't actually produce a lot of their own content. But they're bigger in games than Google or Apple are. That's their big. And they all have AI assistants that they're implementing in various degrees in various ways too. And that's the big race right now, is that AI is going to start to make more of a difference. So Microsoft's strategy is to bring AI into the Windows PC. Google's strategy is to bring AI into their search functionality. And Apple's AI is still to be determined, but they're trying to integrate Apple Intelligence into Siri. Everybody's waiting for it to come into Siri, but Apple's done a lot of things like integrating AI into things like photo search and other tools, document creation tools, and other areas that you might not have seen, but they've been implementing AI in that type of approach and having more success there than they've had with Siri. We're all waiting for next week, which is Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, and we want to see what Apple is going to be introducing in the AI space for that. So, productivity apps. Apple has Pages, Keynote, Numbers, Mail, Contacts, Calendars, Notes. Google has Docs, Slides, Sheets, Gmail, Contacts, Calendar, and what they call Keep. Microsoft has Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and OneNote. So you can get productivity apps from every one of these companies. And their productivity apps all work together better. Their systems all work together better. So in things like Pages and Keynote, for example, it's very easy to insert photos from your Apple photo album. In tools like Word, you can go and use a service on Microsoft's Word for the web where it'll actually create a PowerPoint presentation from a Word document. And they've integrated Copilot very heavily into those applications as well. You can take Outlook email, you can send an email to OneNote, for example, if you want to build a notebook. Google has the same types of things. You can integrate things from Google Docs and share it directly with an email. You can save something as an attachment to your Google Drive. So they have all these integrations, and lots of times we're using a mix of tools, but they all are focused on making sure that their tools and productivity apps integrate together as well as possible and adding more and more functionality. And that's one of the challenges for us as adults as we get older, is that they're introducing technology and features so fast that it's just difficult to keep up with everything new. But in a lot of cases, we just need the basics. And it's a matter of, if something's really going to make a big difference for us, then it might be worth it. And it's not necessarily worth switching once you learn a productivity app. It's pretty much a given that you're going to learn how to use that app better than if you switch over to another app and start to learn something new. So they're all going to be functional. They're all going to be tools that you can use. Now, one of the interesting aspects of the industry is that Microsoft's productivity apps are considered the quote de facto standard, is that Word, PowerPoint, Excel are really considered most widely used. And there are a lot of people that use Google Docs, Slides, and Sheets. There are a lot of people that use Apple Pages, Keynotes, and Numbers. But if you wanted to get an Apple Pages document to a Google Docs document, you can't go directly from Pages to Docs. You can't export from Pages to Google Docs format, but you can export from Apple Pages to a Microsoft Word document, and then you can import your Microsoft Word document into a Google Docs document. And you can go the other way as well. You can take a Google slide or a doc or a spreadsheet. You can export it to Word, PowerPoint, or Excel. And then in Apple and Pages and Keynote Numbers, you can import from Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So Microsoft's dominance does give it some standardization in the industry, is that everybody kind of decided that they're going to communicate and give people the ability to use Word, PowerPoint, and Excel and import and export from their system. But Google's not interested in exporting to Apple. Apple's not interested in exporting to Google. Microsoft's the one they kind of focus on as the common denominator. So that's one of the aspects to keep in mind as you look at your choices on an ecosystem. So as I mentioned a couple of times, most users have a mixed ecosystem. We all have a new job that you may not have known it, but there's a job in the computer technology industry called a systems integrator. And the job of a systems integrator is to integrate technologies from different sources, whether they're companies or internally developed, and get them working together. And in the old days, when a lot of corporations bought lots of different technologies, they might have bought a software application from one company, a database from another company, computer systems from another company. That was a big business and kind of still is a big business in a lot of ways. But you have the same problem that that large corporation has if you're using technology from Apple and Google and Microsoft or somebody else. You've got a mixed ecosystem, and you're the person that's got to make it all work together. So having a little bit of technology skill gives you an edge over other people, because a lot of people just don't know the best way to integrate them together and make them work together. But when you know how to make things work together, like a printer from one company and a computer from another, it makes your life a lot easier. You don't struggle as much. The big picture is applications. So Apple's applications run on Apple devices. They've got iCloud, web apps. They've got integrated support for their hardware and their software. They are probably, in my opinion, one of the best choices for consumers to purchase from, because they provide support from beginning to end on anything that has to do with Apple. Google stuff runs on Android, Apple, Windows, web, and Chromebook. So it's a very web-based focus. It's great for a cloud-based thinking type of person that wants to think about having things available from them on a web page, no matter where they are. You can use them in Chrome, you can use a web browser, but you can also use things like Gmail and Edge. You can use it on Safari, you can use it on Firefox. Their applications and their tools are available predominantly through the web, but they do have applications that will run on local devices where it makes sense. You can use Google Maps on Android, but you can also download Google Maps on Apple, for example. You can use it on a web browser with Microsoft Edge's web browser. Microsoft has applications, they'll run on Android, Apple, Windows, web. It used to not be that way. About, I think, 10, 12 years ago, Microsoft changed their mind. They said you could only get Office apps if you bought a Windows computer. And then they changed their mind and they said, we're going to make Windows available, apps available, or Microsoft Office apps available on Android, on Apple, on the web. So you have a lot of choices here. So you have choices, which is good because choices gives us a competitive marketplace to choose from. And knowing that you have choices about ecosystems and what types of tools you want to use makes sense. But got to remember, we use apps to get things done. We use devices to run the apps, and we use services to give us access to things we might want to use in the cloud or on the internet for some reason. Everything does tend to work best in the same ecosystem, but that doesn't mean you can't bring in other things. I mean, you can use OneDrive on a Mac. You can use Gmail on your iPhone. You could get a Fitbit, for example, if you had an iPhone. That would be a way to get something other than an Apple Watch. You're not required to get an Apple Watch if you want to watch, but the Apple Watch is going to be more tightly integrated in the system. You have Windows that'll work great. You have tablets that are out there for both Android and Apple iOS. And so you have a choice, but everything, as many products in the same ecosystem as possible, tends to make it easier to connect things together as much as possible. The choices are not about what company you buy from. The choices over about what do you use. If you're using something now and you're familiar with it, does it work for you and do what you want it to do? Maybe there are things you don't know about it, which you can learn, but there are other things that might be available. Do you know how to use it? Or is it something that's difficult for you to use and you'd say, well, I don't really use it that much. I don't really know how to use it. So switching to something else is not going to be a major issue. And the other issue is it supported? When you need help, how do you get help? Is there help available on the webs for self-help? Is there help available from a service provider that you can get? Does the manufacturer make help available for you as well? And so these are probably the more important questions about choosing technology and what type of technology device you choose and what you want to use it for. Where when you might want to change? Well, if it gets out of date or becomes unsupported by the company that makes it, it's not going to be difficult. If it isn't working or functioning the way you want it, or if you need new features that you want to use that are not available from whoever you're getting it from right now. And so those are some things to look at. And this is where there's a lot of challenge right now with Apple and Microsoft and Google. Microsoft and Google and Apple, they've invested a lot in artificial intelligence, but it appears as though Microsoft and Google are getting ahead of Apple in terms of integrating artificial intelligence features into their technology. So the days of your having to remember what a file is named in order to find it are going to be coming to an end, because you'll have an AI agent built into your technology that'll help you find that file if your technology has the AI tool available. And this is where everybody's kind of wondering, where is Apple going to be with this? Because Microsoft and Google are moving very rapidly in that direction. So my advice, which you can take or leave, familiarity is one of the best things for learning how to use things. The more familiar you are with something, the easier it's going to be to get comfortable with it, make sure you know how to use it, and add one other little functional feature to it. So adding one little thing to something you're already familiar with makes it easier than having to learn a lot of new things at once about any technology. What do you really need? I mean, what's really important to you? Maybe the biggest document you ever write is one page, or maybe you never really write anything in a document at all, and all you really do is write emails. Maybe the most important thing for you is to be sure you can call somebody if you need support. Maybe the important thing is to be able to manage your photos or other things like that. So what is it you really need? And part of it is that we may not know what's possible with technology, so we don't know what we can, but there's what you need to do, and there's what you may want to do. And so that's about learning technology and what it's capable of and saying, is that something that I would find useful or not? Always ask you that whenever you're learning anything about new technology. Some people want to know how it all works. Some people want to just know that it's going to do something for them they want it to do. And then learning is important too. And that's why you're here. That's why you go to other sessions. That's why you watch YouTube videos. That's why you try things out and learn from other tools that are out there. The other thing is to simplify your technology. It's really easy to buy technology for technology's sake. Some people are hobbyists and they do that. But for the average user, making sure you keep your technology as simple as possible and making sure it works together. And when there's one big dominant type of technology out there, you can be pretty sure that there's other companies that are going to make sure it ties into their ecosystem. Like Apple ties into, Microsoft Word, and Google ties into Microsoft Word. Everybody ties into Gmail. Everybody lets you use Google Cloud and OneDrive, for storage on their system, regardless of the type of computer you have. You can get to a lot of things through the web, no matter what. But simplifying things and keeping things as simple as possible is going to make your life a lot less stressful when it comes to technology. What's next? Well, learn about your devices and services and apps. You can watch these over again. You can take advantage of them if you want to and watch them. They'll be repeated, and join our sessions. We get a lot of good questions. We get a lot of really, really good people that have a lot of technology background in areas that I don't know about. And so there's always something more to learn to help you understand, is this something I can use or not? Or is this going to help make my life easier for me or not? So thank you all for joining me for the 3 Foundations of Technology sessions and learning a little bit about ecosystems today.